because with the exception of Hoyer's interception in the last game, that was the first turnover of the season for the Browns. That's as much a reason that they've played well as everything else, because they have not thrown the ball away, they haven't fumbled the ball away, and they haven't given the ball away. I mean, that's big. They were the last team.
Oh, yeah,
I can't believe this, LG.
And we saw it.
Browns were the last team. I'm sorry, we're going over each other. The Browns were the last team in the NFL to have a turnover. I mean, I don't know when you could even say that. I'm right here if you're whistling at me. I know I look good, but I don't remember when the last time you could say that about the Browns, period, was that they were the last team to commit a turnover. That's crazy. That was a very good job in 4 games of protecting the ball. They have to keep that up. I don't care if you're talking about Hoyer, Tate, any of them. And I agree, there's been some that they've gotten away from, but so far they've done a good job of not giving these games away, even though in the first half of Tennessee and Pittsburgh, they tried their damnedest to give the thing away, but that's a different kind of giving it away.
Well, I got to tell you, J-Rock, it all comes down to having these guys ready to play, and I don't understand what it's going to take to get this defense on the same page as the rest of the football team. You got to come out and you got to start fighting from the opening snap, because we got 60 minutes of football to play, and we can't afford to keep spotting people 25 points ahead or 28 points or whatever we're giving up and think that we're going to be able to come back every time. It's a nice thought. Hoyer has that kind of confidence, but I would like to see the Browns start putting these opponents away.
Listen, you know what? It's like having jumper cables in the trunk. That's great that I've got them, and if I need it, if the car dies, I got jumper cables, but I don't want to start my car every day with jumper cables,
Exactly. Exactly. Sooner or later the battery's going to blow up on you.
I don't want to do it. I'll save them for when I need them, but it's nice to know that I don't have to pull them out of the trunk. That would be nice.
Well, I'm looking for a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. It'll be our first divisional win of the year, and I think it's going to happen this Sunday.
Me too.
I'm excited. I think that you talk about the dead rivalry between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Let's not forget for 1 second that saw some of the real rivalries between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. A win for Hoyer this Sunday will be the biggest win of his NFL career as a starting quarterback.
I agree. I do agree with all of that. I think the Browns will win this game. I think they're going to take the momentum of that. I mean, come on. That is a hell of a comeback the other day, even against a bad team. Just the fact that I don't care how bad the team is, it is not easy to score that many points in the second half of a football game. But I'm just saying, I think they take the momentum of that.
And any given Sunday, excuse the cliche, any team in the NFL can win. These guys are still some of the best drafted athletes that come out of college or wherever they came from to play in the NFL. There's only 0.5% of all men in the world playing NFL football. So even though a team's record may be 1-3 or 1-4, doesn't mean that team isn't capable of competing on a football field. And we saw some of that with the way that the Titans were trying to do things on Sunday. And, Walker himself surprised the heck out of me with his ability to move on the football field and scramble around back there and score touchdowns and everything else, man.
Listen,
obviously
I'm with you,
his body can't take the beating that we issued to him, but that was good for us too, Yeah,
and I'm with you. And that's the other thing, too, is John McMullen says this phrase a lot, and it's true. In today's NFL, more than ever before, week to week has become compartmentalized. It's not, yes, there are teams that are free falling and there's teams that are having a bad season. That stuff is true, but week to week has really become the NFL game. Not just the Browns, but every game. It's your matchups each week, and the lowest team can beat the highest team if on that week their matchups are in their favor. Like I say, if you've got the tall receivers against the really short corners, or if you've got the offensive line against the really, a really bad offensive line against a bad team's good up front, they may be able to cause you trouble the whole game. So that's week to week. Those matchups are really true. No matter what your overall record is. We saw it this week. If you were to look at the final score, and that's the other thing too, is people just go, oh, it's Seattle versus Washington. Seattle should win by 30 points, and they would have if those touchdowns didn't get taken off the board. But at the end of the day, they got out of there with a 10-point victory, and really, if it wasn't for Russell Wilson getting away on third down and getting that dump off to Marshawn Lynch, Washington may have gotten that ball back with a chance to tie or take the lead. They wouldn't have won the game, but that was a one-possession game until the last 5 minutes of the game. So a game that you would think should be a complete whitewash came down to the final 5 minutes, even though one team was so much better than the other. That's just the way today's NFL is.
Oh, absolutely, J-Rock. And one parting thought I want to leave you with is the Cleveland Browns are doing all this without their top offensive playmaker. Can you imagine the impact if we see the same Josh Gordon return when he comes back in Week 10 or 11, whenever it is? If he comes back and plays to the same caliber of football we've seen this guy play with last year. Obviously there was grave concern over the Cleveland Browns receivers coming into the 2014 NFL season. We were skeptical about not drafting Sammy Watkins, who I still think we should have took, because it would only add fuel to Hoyer's flames. And I got to tell you, when this Josh Gordon returns, if we are close, if we're just still in the competition, I can see him as being a valuable asset for Brian Hoyer, and this football team this year could really turn some heads. And I know it's too early to even mention the word playoffs, but I got to tell you, with the heart this guy has, with the players that are making the plays that he has now, with the return of Josh Gordon, and if Josh Gordon can play to the same caliber of football we've seen him return with last season after the 2-game suspension, nothing but good things could happen for this Cleveland Browns offense. Have everybody else stay healthy, too.
LG, I agree, and you said it's too early, of course. You don't even say the word playoffs, but I've told people this.
I hate to mention
say
it,
that,
but
here's my
I'm
prediction.
If
you want to be able to say the word playoffs, the Browns need to be 6-4 when they get Josh Gordon back. If they are, and they should be, if they are at least 6-4 after 10 games when they get Josh Gordon back, then you can start talking about making a run, because then you really will have a possibility.
Well, I firmly believe that the playoff run starts this Sunday in Cleveland, Ohio. Because
that's a 12-game playoff run, LG. That's a long one.
I'm not saying we're gonna start.
I know what you're saying.
I know, man. You gotta win the. We still got to have a game against the Ravens. We still got 2 games against the Cincinnati Bengals, who came off a severe beating by a Tom Brady people were calling to bench.
I agree.
Last week.
That Ravens game is at the end of the season,
too. We got to
too.
win in our division.
I agree, and that Ravens game is the last down at the end of the season. That could be the division could come down to that, depending on how the season plays out. But that's all a lot to go. That's funny. LG says the march to the playoffs begins now, baby. But you're right. This is huge.
It does, J-Rod, because this will be it's in a divisional game, and you got to win those games in your division if you want to even consider making the playoffs. You got to win those games. And this,
you can't be 0-3
this Sunday, man.
You don't want to start 0-3 in the division and 2 games behind Pittsburgh there. Absolutely not. So it is huge. Absolutely. LG, my man, anything else?
No, that's it, J-Rock Daddy. I mean, we're getting ready to gear up for unbelievable Cavaliers basketball season. I'm anxious to see what this team's going to be able to pull off this year with the addition of Ray Allen and LeBron, Kevin Love.
Well, let me throw something in real quick, LG. I'm just gonna throw this. You guys know that I simulate with the franchises on some of these high tech video game fandangles. I did simulate. I've got the new basketball game that came out this week, and I simulated it out. Cavaliers lost to the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals in 7 games. They lost Game 7 to the Chicago Bulls. They won 58 games during the regular season, and they lost in 7 games in the finals to the Chicago Bulls. Cleveland and Chicago were number 1 and number 2 into the playoffs. The Cavs swept the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs. They beat the Bobcats in the second round of the playoffs and then fell to the Bulls, who beat the Spurs in the finals to win the championship. So, according to my first computer simulation,
J-Rock?
Hey, that's a successful season to me, brother. Hey, if you can get to the conference finals, what? Go for it.
Tells me money can't buy you love. You could only rent it for a couple of years.
There you go. There you go. Oh, for those of you guys wondering, though, LeBron and Kevin Love did both re-sign for 5 years with me after the season. So nobody ran away from Cleveland after the end of the season. But that was where the simulation took it out. Of course, it's a computer. It's not real life. But that sounded relatively realistic to me. And I said, well, to me, if you go from what you had for the last 3 years to one game away from the finals in your first season together, the sky's the limit on where you can go from there. So, hey, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
One thing we're going to see with this Cavaliers basketball team, and it's going to start as soon as the lights come and dim down and they start introducing the players. When they call out LeBron James' name, excitement is going to return onto the Cleveland Cavs home court. Regardless of whatever the final outcome is, if it's one game away from the finals or not, that place is going to be rocking. It's going to be packed every single game this year, J-Rock, and it's going to give you the same kind of an exciting feeling that you're getting right now watching the Cleveland Browns win football games. Nobody is going to be leaving these games with a ill feeling in their stomach, and it's just a shame that the Cleveland Indians fell so short, of missing the playoffs. We saw what happened to the Detroit Tigers. I wish the Cleveland Indians would have been able to kick their butts a little bit more this year and win.
You know what, though, LG? I know where you're going with that because I haven't said this on air yet, but I'll go ahead and say it now for the first time. I actually wrote it down in an envelope and sealed the envelope the other day, and I said, now I'm going to open this at the end of 2015 and show everybody that I wrote it down a year in advance. Next year, I'm predicting it. It begins, if you want to count 14 into 15, it's starting with the Cavs. But next year will be the first season that I can remember. I'm sure there may have been one where all three teams make the playoffs in the same season. I feel it coming. Next year, 2015. I'm not talking championships. I don't know who wins what. But next year, I believe all three Cleveland teams make the playoffs.
Well, just think, J-Rock, you know me, I travel all over the place. I'll be down in Costa Rica in the middle of November, and I've been all over the country, all over the world, different countries, and sometimes I'm wearing something that has Cleveland on it. And even when I was in Mexico, people come up to me, you lost LeBron James back when that fiasco took place. But let me just tell you something. Cleveland will no longer be the laughing stock of the sports world, and it's good that we could hold our breath and stay alive as long as it took to see something like this coming our way, because we certainly deserve it as fans. The fans in Cleveland are dedicated people. We do this, what we do with Cleveland Sports 360. You do it with the Sports Pip Show. Bruce Wood does it with the Morning Wood page. We do it to entertain sports fans, and we've been razzed and took a beating for the last so many years. Now we're seeing life above that water we've been holding our breath under for all these years, J-Rock. And it feels pretty darn good from where I'm sitting right now.
There's not a fan base that deserves it more than Cleveland. They've dealt with enough. Not just suffered with sports teams, but they've suffered with sports radio that sucks for so long. And good to see some good things come around. LG, my man, I got to go. Thank you so much for the phone call.
Okay, J-Rock, Daddy, I'll talk to you soon. Let's go Browns. Let's beat those Steelers because Pittsburgh sucks, baby.
Hear from you next week after the game, LG. My man, LG, as he said, check him out, Cleveland Sports 360 and ClevelandSports360.com. Take a break, come back. Dan Wismar will be here with us. Magic. It's like the magic of, now you see me? Now you, like the Magic Man. Now you see me? No, you don't. I don't know if you guys ever seen the Talladega Nights, but you have to imagine me actually waving my hands there with the now you see me, now you don't. Anyways, we're going to take a break. When we come back, my man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan joins us here. We'll talk some Browns, talk some Buckeyes, Cavaliers. Hey, whatever Dan wants to talk about, let's do it. We'll talk about it next. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan joins us. I'll reopen up the phone lines. Great call there from LG and so much more coming up next. Don't go away. Dan Wismar on tap next on The Fix. Yeah.
Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.